So we're here in the WiT Studio with Kerry Healy from Accor. First off, Kerry, I want to say that you did this in 2023 with us, so welcome back. Thanks for doing this again.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, good to have you here. I want to start by asking you, so with Accor's scale across the Middle East and Africa and APAC, right, how do you apply sort of fragmented guest data from multiple markets and multiple sources, multiple systems to build a single source of truth for personalization? I guess data hygiene, I could have kept that a lot shorter and said, how do you maintain data hygiene?
I'm not sure the answer is any shorter, but I'll give it a go, because obviously we're obsessed, like most organizations, about data. So we are in the middle of building what we call a connected guest identity. So it's a unique profile that I guess reconciles the property systems, the loyalty data, the digital interactions into one dynamic view. So that means that every guest, whether they're booking through the app or stay in a resort in Dubai or in Mercure in Bangkok, are recognized in real time. So that's the first part. So and then at the center of all of that is what we call the CDP, the Customer Data Platform, and that connects we're going to use lots of acronyms now, the PMS, the Property Management System, or the CRS, the Central Reservation System, with our app, with the web and loyalty ecosystems. So again, interconnected everything, which is really going to ensure that every engagement during, post-stay has contextual relevance. So governance is critical as we're talking about data. So role-based permissions to keep that data compliant, good hygiene, as you mentioned. And the real magic then comes together in what? In marketing, in activation. So that single source of truth is what powers everything for our CRM, the customer retention, I guess, management, journeys to property tools, to so the front desk, food and beverage, spa, experience teams, all know how to act on insights based on that data. And I think that's where personalization then becomes tangible. Guests feel known and not just marketed to, which is exactly what I've just been talking about this morning.
Right. I'm going to come back to the panel that you just had that you're fresh off of in a bit, but I also wanted to ask you, so you have this sort of tapestry of data and systems that are interconnected, this web. How is Accor leveraging partnerships with OTAs, super apps, other third-party platforms to extend that personalization, beyond its own ecosystem, but while still protecting the brand equity and the brand voice, I guess?
Yeah. So, this is, I think it's something that I've probably talked to you guys about before, and we are still very passionate about partnerships, but very intentional. And by that I mean fewer, but better and more strategic. So understanding that we need to protect brand equity as well, each partnership really has to have a clear case, a defined value proposition that's going to enhance that guest experience, but also strong guardrails to protect the brand equity and the data, right? Because when you start talking partnerships, the only way to activate on that is what are you doing with the data? What are you offering to each other's customers? So in markets like Southeast Asia and the Middle East, super apps, regional travel platforms are obviously part of the guest journey. So rather than compete head on, we integrate smartly, right? We use privacy safe, clean room data matching, which lets us target more effectively and measure performance as well, which I think is obviously is a big part of that. And I guess we're looking to bring partners into the ecosystem that enrich the daily lives of our guests, right? And are very specific to the passion points that we think create that joy. So I don't think it's about abandoning third-party ecosystems, but ensuring that the ones we do set up have the right rules of engagement, and the measure of success is no longer the last click. It's profitability, it's guest lifetime value, which is another thing we were just speaking about on stage, and of course brand preference and equity over time. Right? Are they going to help us? Are they going to lift us up? That's what we're looking for. Right.
And what is a growing trend in the Middle East that you think the industry should keep an eye on? And I say growing trend because it's one of those that's still in its infancy that maybe people are not looking at yet, but it's going to sort of, have a big boost in the coming year.
It's a good question. I'd say we're entering an era of what we call like premium basics, right? Guests are really increasingly value certainty. That's what they're chasing. So time saved, a great night's sleep, healthy dining, reliable tech, rather than overcomplication. So
the intangibles.
Yes. So but also the premium basics of what we expect. So, but there's another good word for it. So, in a world where everything else is automated and the human touch and the consistency of that, the delivery, is becoming the new luxury. I think we're also seeing hotels become the host of the moment. The biggest wins come when we connect properties to sports, so cultural calendars, whether it's, Riyadh season or Art Dubai or Formula One like we've just had here. When you bring these moments into the customers, the guests want to belong. I mean, at our F1 event on the weekend, I seriously met one of our members who had flown in from Brazil for 2 nights. It was crazy to me.
Just to catch the event.
To catch the event, but was able to do it through, obviously, burning points of our program. But, when you know what the passion points of our customer are, you can really play to that. And that's even going back to your previous question as well, like getting the right partners in that add value is super important. And so coming back to what else we should keep an eye out is payments, right? I've heard a lot about it on the stage this morning, but quietly revolutionizing conversion and loyalty. So obviously seamless digital wallets, cross-border super app payments, flexible redemption options will define the next frontier of hospitality convenience.
Right. I want to get technical with this next question, and it's about Expedia's new survey that just came out. So they had a survey called...
I read it.
Yep. How centralized distribution can help hotels reduce rate leakage and protect revenue, right? So what is your response to that survey? Because Accor was basically the first to sort of centralize and limit partners.
I mean, obviously I would validate what's in that article. We weren't the first, by the way, but we were an early mover. So, and I think the important part and where I resonate with the article is when Accor centralized its distribution model, it wasn't really control for control's sake. It was about protecting that rate integrity, that brand equity, and that brand trust. Why are we fighting over winning a price point as opposed to delivering on the experience, right? And it's wasted marketing dollars as well. So I believe that this distribution allows us to be very selective with partners who bring real value, so talking to your partnership, as opposed to fragmented distribution, which gets very cumbersome in the age of tech enablement, AI, and I'm sure it's about to get even more. So to me, it's not even about, and I'm direct versus indirect, although I'm sure we'll always have some fun exchanges on that subject. It was about ensuring we were orchestrating healthy, data-driven mix where first-party data fuels every decision, right? That discipline means our hotels can focus less on chasing that parity position, which is exhausting, and more about elevating the guest experience, which in the long run drives what? More profitable bookings? Yes, some direct, but just generally better brand equity, better trust with that consumer. And we've just finished debating about how do we co-share building trust and leaning into the customer being the winner of the future.
Right. So you mentioned that you just came off a panel, you moderated the panel. I want to go back to that. We are, of course, at WiT Singapore. And on this panel, you had Como, you had Peninsula, you had Booking, you had Trip. So the big fish on the panel. What is your biggest takeaway from that session as someone who has so much experience in this space? And I want to say that the name of the panel was "The Future is not about channels, but about guest experience."
Good question, and I have just come off, so it should be rolling off my tongue for you. The fact is, I think Laura said it best at the end. She said we're going to continue fighting over channels, but I think the reality is, I think we all agree that whilst we may continue to want different things, that what really struck me is that the guest doesn't care where they booked. They care about how they feel. So whether that's through an OTA, whether that's through brand app, super app, what matters is the experience that follows, right? So the challenge for all of us across brands, tech, distribution partners is to stop fighting over that ownership and start obsessing over the experience, right? And where is the shared experience, or where is the shared alignment that's required to make sure that the end result for the customer is what they want and for the guest. So I think the challenge for all of us is to really change that conversation. And for me, today's conversation reinforced that the future of loyalty won't be defined by who owns the booking, but by who delivers the seamless, personalized, emotionally resonant journey. And I think a big brand advantage is starting to show when we've got scale, we've got data, we've got deeply local teams, we've got collective human intelligence, which leans into that emotional intelligence, which leans into delivering that guest experience, which stays into stories. It was an exciting panel. Yeah.
But on that note, you said that the guest doesn't care what happens behind the scenes; they're just looking for that experience, right? In markets where price sensitivity is considered a deal breaker, sometimes, how do you convince guests that experience and things like emotional connection outweigh discounts as a core value proposition?
Yeah, look, I think the key is reframing what value means. For today's guests, value isn't about the percentage off. It's about certainty, recognition, and save time. So if we offer early check-in, curate experiences, or micro upgrades before the guest even asks, we've already earned that premium. Going back to the premium basics that I was referring to.
You're preempting what they would.
We're preempting,
want.
But they don't even sometimes know that these are what they want, right? But when you're consistently delivering them, that's personalization. And I think guests will see the benefit of loyalty in real time, exclusive access, choice of benefits, recognitions that feel genuine, that feel personalized. So when the basics are delivered flawless and the emotional connection is real, price does become secondary. And if it's a destination that is still challenged by price, those things still matter, and the price point will be relevant for that particular market.
Right. And I guess that
and we have a brand for all of that as well.
Yeah.
they can downgrade a brand and stay somewhere else.
Right. And I guess that kind of answers my next question as well, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What are the metrics that you use to define things like emotional resonance, having experiences? How do you tweak the ROI to reflect or represent things like that?
Actually, this was also a question that we discussed on the panel just now. How do we move away from some of those traditional metrics? And I think 100%, if people aren't already thinking beyond Net Promoter Score, NPS, they should be. So we're really focused on what we call a guest connection index, and that is it's a far more holistic measure that includes the in-stay sentiment, service recovery speed, return rate, share of direct bookings, engagement depth, and value growth, right? How much are we getting back? What is the return of value of our acquisition of a customer? And how are we bringing them through our family of brands and their lifespan with us? So I think every hotel should have this kind of metric on its dashboard, because emotional loyalty isn't built through one campaign. It's built through 1,000 small, consistent interactions that make a guest feel seen, valued, and remembered.
Right. Guest Connection Index.
Guest Connection Index. You've got to love our industry. We do come up with some amazing acronyms.
Amazing names, amazing acronyms. Yeah. So in closing, I wanted to ask you, we've been talking about this new wave of AI. It's about 3 years now, and people say it's still in its infancy, it's still growing, it's about to really explode in the next 5 years. Thinking back, has your opinion of AI changed within the context of Accor over the years? If no, why not? And if yes, how so?
I don't think my core belief has changed, right? I think that AI's role is to remove friction and to raise the bar, to raise the floor, but not replace the magic of hospitality, which was what I've always said. What has changed is the speed and scale of what's possible, the focus in our organization at a global level, at a regional level. 3 years ago, we were testing pilots. Today, AI is seamlessly embedded across our business. So from CRM to pricing automation to guest engagement, food waste, so many areas of the business, and we, the rest is yet to come, right? So we've moved from, I would say, experimentation to orchestration. AI is now predicting preferences, personalizing the content for us, supporting our teams with real-time insights that quietly lift that net promoter score and probably definitely help the guest connection index. Right? So it's no longer a futuristic tool. It's an invisible co-pilot, enabling our teams to spend more time with what is important, which is the guest, right? So at Accor, we always said AI will run the pipes, but we run the water, right? The platforms might handle the transactions, but hotels like ours create the memories, the emotions, and the loyalty that truly matters.
AI will run the pipes and you control the water.
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. Awesome. Kerry, thank you so much for doing this.
That's okay. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the next to